Oh no. This is a trick. Yep, it's a trick. I thought she was losing it for a second, but I underestimated her. Oh my god! Yeah. Yeah, it's all these things at once. Wow. So that was definitely a start to an episode. Alright, Gabi. Yeah, when I first saw her freaking out, my thought was, she's just too far gone with everything she's seen and all the loss of trust she's experienced, and so she's losing her mind. And that was wrong. The truth is, she's too far gone because of all the trust she's lost that she's going to destroy everything in her path from now on. And the loss of trust thing is huge. I think out of all the kids, she was the one who got the most satisfaction out of trust and relying on the infrastructure, right? It's like, if you just believe in what they're telling you, if you just believe in the adults, if you believe that by becoming warriors, we can do great things for ourselves and our families, good things come true. And not only were her heroes just wiped out in front of her eyes, but Zeke betrayed her. Hopefully she can trust in Falco. At least. Another day waking up in a hospital after a near-death experience. How many times has it been now for Reiner? Oh no, this is a dream, isn't it?
Gabiとファルコの声が聞こえた。二人はどこだ?
Wait, did Peak survive? That's excellent. I thought she was dead. Alright, in the darkness that is this season, one potential point of hope for me, I guess, seeing this scene. Speaking of power vacuums, there's gonna be one in Marley now, because a lot of the military was just wiped out. Is there not an opportunity for, like, Reiner and Porco and Peak and Magath, he's still alive, right? To maybe gain some influence here? It does really seem to me that for the first time, Reiner is actually aligned with something that's his own, you know? It's not just the propaganda. It's like the kids understanding the violence, understanding how terrible this circle is. Deceiver! So my hope is that he could, you know, pull something out. I wonder if she identifies with having it on some level. You mean something to her, yeah. Yeah. She actually loved her world. I've said this before about Gabi, but truly my predominant feeling for her is like pity, because in many ways she's a victim of her own talent. This is true for all of us, but kids especially. You know, you look for a place you can belong, and if you find things that people love you for early, you lean all the way into that and it becomes your whole world. Gabi was the best. You know, like she won a war. Pretty much. She's just too young to have the full perspective on what things really were. And so she actually did really love her world. And love the people in it. You know, even like the gate guards and her superiors and the military officers. So I get why she's attached to the armband. And Falco is such a good character to put alongside her too, because he was there with her. You know, he's not so far off from her. It's just that the little cracks that he experienced that made him unsure put him like one foot out into a more observant world. But he also loves Gabi, so they're so great together. And about what Gabi said about like, I just want to know this one thing, right? Where have we heard that before? You know, where have we heard, I just need to get X and then I have what I need or whatever, I'm free. This is the beginning of a long journey for Gabi, assuming that she survives. It's good that she actually cares for him too. Probably better if you just don't know. She's getting ready. Stop her, Falco. There you go. We eat first, and then we hit her with this rock. I find myself like actually wanting the best for these kids. Like I really want them to just have a different life, but it'll take a lot for Gabi. Tell her, Falco. Tell her. Your whole family's in danger. This is really nice. Please let this kindness have good effects. Please let this kindness be rewarded. Oh man, I'm so on edge. And please let this be genuine kindness too. It looks so delicious too. Yeah. It's not hard to imagine that there are going to be a lot of people who support all the various sides of this. Yeah, it's interesting. This is a thing for Hanji, and also for the scouts in general. They've set a precedent as like caring about telling the truth. In fact, I feel like their attitude to whether or not they have to tell the truth reflects a bigger thing that's coming up for me a lot in the show, which is like exclusively prioritizing outcomes versus doing what feels right. The previous scouts, in their way, they seemed pretty committed to the truth. Like Season 3 was largely about the destruction of lies and uncovering the truth. And one of the ways it attained victory, and one of the things that felt good to me, was that they opened up what was really going on to the civilians using the press. And so I don't know what Hanji's going to do exactly, but for her to obfuscate truth in the name of an objective, for me there's something significant about that. And just speaking way more generally, for me I feel like the truth can never be bad. The truth can often be painful, for sure. But a lot of times that pain is not the truth itself, but the destruction of a lie. It's like the attachment to a certain worldview. Like Gabi right now, who is sort of in existential hell because all the lies just came crumbling down around her. But if that's not actually the truth, then it can't be bad for that to be dispelled, ultimately. To make a commitment to the truth, I think, maybe hurts and is difficult short term, but creates less damage long term, especially when you consider, like, we're all trying to operate as best as we can, both as individuals and as a society, as societies, with the information we're given. And so to build things on lies, it detracts us from that process of refinement by which we're always learning and growing. The more honest feedback you get from the world, and from your surroundings, the quicker you're refined into something that matches what the world is and allows you to live suitably and well, Lies have this weird way of creating all sorts of distortions that are hard to trace. It warps the messages and therefore it warps behavior. And to me, it seems to sort of derail or delay like actual insight that leads to meaningful innovation or insight or whatever, whether it be as a person or as like a large group of people. I think it was last episode I was talking about how like it's difficult to do things you feel are right. One of the things that I think about in that vein is like, try always telling the truth, or try never lying. That's insanely difficult.
状況が変わったんだよ。壁が開かれ、世界とつながり、情報の持つ意味が変わったんだ。
Oh no.
だから目を見て言ってくれ。
Yeah, she inspired this guy. She changed his whole life.
すべてはエルディア国民、みんなのためだ。
Yeah, this is where your ideals are tested, right? Like, when things are going wrong. Hanji's now responsible for everything.
ホルガ、ビム、ルイーゼ、新兵の君たちと。
What I feel like Flash is making power moves.
エレンを解放すべきだからです。彼は
Oh
何も
god,
間違った
yeah,
こ
the
とを
scouts are
していな
factioning
い。
too. It's not just the people.
地ならしという圧倒的な力であり、我々の生存権です。エレンは我々、神聖エルディア帝国国民全員の命を救いました。
その地ならしが期待通りに機能して、我々を救う保証は何もないんだよ。
先の大勝利が無駄に終わります。この国を導くのはエレン・イェーガーです。
Lead the country.
私はジークの作戦を完遂するとの決断を下した。すべては私の責任だ。
Trusting Zeke, maybe not the best move.
この4人を懲罰房へ。
But I feel like this is gonna make it worse, maybe. This feels like just the beginning of this rift, honestly.
順番がある。役を降りても誰かがすぐに
Oh, yeah.
頑張れよ。
Wow, that really came full circle, didn't it?
疲れた。
Yeah, I don't blame you.
まだ調べることがある。
For me, the conflict between Hanji and Flash is something you see a lot. Like, people get really attached to these binary outcomes, where it's either we do this and survive, or we do this and die. Accompanying that is often these kinds of emotional arguments. It's like, well, do you want to get wiped out, But just because Hanji is not all on board, doesn't mean she's not considering that as an option. The more difficult work is to weigh all things and to be very careful and to see the situation as complex and nuanced, and to be aware of the fact that there are always unintended consequences for everything, and things rarely work out the way you think they will. So it's not unreasonable for Hanji to be thinking about these things and to be a little bit hesitant in acting. But that's a hard battle to win, because people who do want a certain result, who are attached to a certain outcome, will frame you as like not caring, or as not having the strength to do what it takes. A lot of the time, caution is confused for weakness. Nuance is confused with like not caring or not understanding, The truth is almost always going to be a more difficult fight. Binary choices backed by emotion especially are just so much more compelling. And people who want a result know that deeply in their hearts and push that to the maximum extent that they can. And so issues so often devolve into that kind of conversation where it's just like, if you don't want the same things I want, it's because you are hateful or you're evil or whatever. Or you are stupid is a very common one. But I think as a leader, or as a leader who wants to do right or wants to be responsible for the position they're in, you have to like just power through that. You gotta just be willing to have that hard fight and not cater to these like very, very riled up emotional black and white pressures.
ここはミカサさんの入ったことのある棒ですか？え、 違うけど。そうですか。
Wasn't she in a cell during that amazing bed hair scene?
勝利が調査兵団の目的なら規則を守ることは必ずしも絶対というわけではありませんよね。
Is this victory the end all be all though?
私はあなたに命を救われたあの日からあの時のままです。巨人を人の力でねじ伏せたあなたを見て分かったのです。
Oh, she was in the crowd?
少しでもあなたに近づきたくて。
Oh, she got an admirer.
私はミカサさんが調査兵団に入った理由は何ですか？イエガーさんのためなら彼の自由を。私から言えることは一つ。口を閉じてなさい。
She's getting a little bit too close there. Back to this scene. Interesting.
ミカサ。
What was that? What is the significance of going back there now? I guess part of it is she did for this girl what Eren did for her in a way. I'm all for both of them. I guess it's great to get them through, to have them rise up and actually do something, to become powerful or join the scouts or whatever it was. There's been something incomplete about Mikasa's worldview for a long time, and now maybe this girl's worldview, which is something like you do whatever you need to do. And also an element of them relying a little bit too much on that person for their identity. But right at this moment, Mikasa's sort of transitioning out of that and thinking a little bit more about herself, it seems. About to bite her head off. Do horses do that? This is a very domestic life for these kids. To give you some humanity and warmth.
いや、馬の仕業だと思うぞ。
Humanity and warmth. Come on, Gabi. You can do it. Please.
こんな田舎にいても何の情報も得られない。
Oh, you'll learn more than you think. I hope.
お昼にしよう。
Seems like she's a little bit suspicious.
早いね。
Rightly so.
そんな、ありがとうございます。
女王の方針で行き場のない子供には支援があるから。
She would, right?
この島の民が世界に対して
Oh
残
no.
虐非道の限りを尽くした歴史をお忘れですか？
Do these foster kids even deserve to breathe?
逃れられる罪の重さではありません。マーレではそう教えられてるの。
何言ってんだよ。
これは普遍的な
It's
歴
gonna
史
take a long time to get that much Kool-Aid out of your system, I guess.
君たちはマーレから来たんでしょ？
Ooh.
最初からですか？
Oh no, what is Gabi doing?
もう、なんで
Keep no. Keep her away from sharp objects and hard objects. Any objects. Don't give her any objects. It's a fake out. It's a fake out. It's a fake out. It's a fake out. Oh no, it wasn't a fake out.
正体を
No.
おかしいと思ったんだ。
It's okay. It's a learning experience. It's a learning experience.
ミヤがお兄ちゃん取られるって。
Uh,
開いてるの。
fighting hatred with kindness. Man, I'm so on edge. I just want these kids to have a life. Damn it.
どうして？
Because you make a choice in this world sometimes, You don't have to just be evil just because everyone else is evil.
あそこでお母さんが食べられる音を聞いてた。壁の外には人類がいて、私たちは悪魔の民族だって言ってるんでしょ。でも、なんでそんなに恨まれているのかよくわからないの。
Is this the girl Sasha saved, or am I getting that wrong?
エルディア人は何千年もの間、巨人の力で世界を支配し蹂躙してきたの。他の民族の文化を奪って、望まれない子を産ませて、数えきれないほど人を殺してきたの。
That's it. Get it out.
あなたたちの先祖が犯した罪の大きさが問題なの。
She's literally sweating Kool-Aid out right now. Out of her pores.
一体何の罪を犯しているの？
Yes.
お母さんは誰も殺してない。ねえミヤ。
Yeah, speaking of lies and truth, right?
なんでお母さんがあんなに苦しんで殺されたのか、何か理由があるんでしょ。
This is gonna hurt like hell for Gabi, but it's because she's believing all these lies.
威力偵察です。お母さんには何の罪もありません。ごめんなさい。
軍の情報を敵国に漏らして、それでなんで謝るの？
Falco's growing so quickly. I mean, Ben. Thank you, Ben.
レンが謝るのはおかしいよ。
This girl too is
生まれ
amazing.
ただけなのに、今の私より少し年上ぐらいのお
Yeah.
姉ちゃんが
And her killer happens to be in this room.
巨人から私を逃がしてくれた。
Yep.
お姉ちゃんが生きてたら、行く当てのないあなたたちを決して見捨てたりしない。私にそうしてくれたように。
It hurts so bad.
どうして？
Look at it.
お姉ちゃんみたいな人になりたいの。
Look at it, Gabi. Damn, it's so sad. Gabi will probably never know. I'm glad though, it's even though it's so sad and tragic, in a way it makes me feel good because it's a nice tribute to Sasha. Like her legacy lives on. The brave action that she took led to this girl being so resilient and amazing. And I guess there's a lot of that in this episode because it's also the conversation with Mikasa and the girl in the cell. But they ended up in slightly different places, maybe based on the tone of the event.
獣の巨人の死骸を調べた結果、爆破され粉々になったジークの体が部分的に見つかった。
They figured it out. Told you couldn't trust them.
ずっと一緒に戦ってたのに。
Do you know who the real enemy is?
半年ですか。ファルコとガビの救出も
I
半
like his
年後でしょう
priorities.
か。あの二人は最も優秀な戦士候補生です。
Oh yeah, that's potentially a reason why. They also care. I believe they care.
世界連合軍の集結を待つ。ジークもそう考えるでしょう。大打撃を受けたマーレ軍はすぐさま攻勢に転じることはないと。
Are we going back to the island?
パラディ島を奇襲すべきです。
Wow. Whoa. Reiner headed to the island, but this time it's personal. In a different way, I guess. So amidst all these insane action episodes this season, this one has more of a thematic focus, but it's really fun. There's so much going on here with like cycles, how what you do is not just what you do, but the effect it has on others. And you have a whole bunch of examples of that. And you also have an example of like goodness, you know, like for all this talk about like, you know, there's no good or bad guys. For me, the character of the girl who Sasha saved is quite heroic in the way she approached things, which doesn't mean that she's incapable of evil. You know, it just means that as she serves the story, I think there's something really beautiful about that. You know, I think that the show continues to like make me worry that it's just darkness, right? That the conclusion is that like, no, the world is just cruel, the end. And that's something I see that is believed about the show widely through comments. But there's just no way that this is an accident at this point. You know, there are people who get out of that cycle, even if for just a moment, and do things that are better than what they've experienced, which then actually has positive effects. You know, it's not just idealism, it has pragmatic effects. For her to see Gabi try to kill her, understand that, and then fight with her about the truth, not in like a malicious way, but in like a look at this thing that's happening kind of way. Took a lot of strength, and you hope actually will help Gabi sweat out the Kool-Aid a little bit faster. It's funny to think about because recently I've gotten, not many, just a couple comments about how like I'm naive and I don't understand the world, or that I don't really understand cruelty of the world. But for me, those comments imply not understanding cruelty of the world. And I say that because if you really understand the depths to which humanity can go to, you are almost forced to marvel at how far we've come and that goodness can exist at all, you know? If you've gone all the way into that darkness, all the way into human darkness, and see it in yourself, you realize that the only reason anything good exists and that humanity is still around at all is because of people who didn't give into that thinking. And that's it. It's only those people who keep us from devolving into the worst kinds of chaos and destruction. So no, I would say it's not naive. It's an obligation. You know, it's a call to action. To, yes, you know, like speaking of the truth, you don't want to ignore the reality, and reality includes the most atrocious acts of mankind, like unfathomable depths of darkness that we're capable of. You don't shy away from that. You don't pretend that humans are just born these perfect magical animals that just exude rainbows and sunshine, but you also don't stop at that cruelty. You then say, all right, given that that's possible, what role do I play in it? What role do I want to play in it? The answer to me is not like just whatever my side happens to be. It's more like a commitment to the best of one's ability, because it's difficult and we don't really know what we're doing. We don't know the full consequences of our actions. To not knowingly participate in the evil that we are aware of, and to see that as a process of refinement towards that ideal, even though failure is inevitable. It is not to just excuse all behavior in the name of like, well, they did it first, you know, or well, they're cruel, or cruelty exists, and so what am I supposed to do? No, you think a little bit higher than that. You don't want to become that. And I would argue that it's that very thing that we feel is heroic when we watch it. It's not being sucked down by that. It's having the strength to do what feels right despite intense physical pressure. You know, speaking of Avatar, that's part of what makes Aang's journey so satisfying, is that he feels something is wrong and the whole world is telling him to do it. But because he's a hero, he finds a way to win while also doing what he feels is right, or at least not doing what he feels is wrong. That's heroism. And this episode, more than a lot of others I've seen, seems to be very aware of that very thing. And so, again, despite the crazy tragedy, I'm surprisingly left with like this optimistic feeling. So take that, everyone who said the show would break me. I mean, it has broken me, but I'm down but not out, at least. Cautionary tales are good too, you know what I mean? Like, it exists on a spectrum. There's the things that you want to avoid, and there's the things that you want to be. And both are important. You know, the cruelty is important too. The villainy is important too. Heroism would be sort of easy if everything always worked out. It wouldn't really be heroic. This show, I think, goes deeper into the depths of that than just about anything I've ever seen. And I think at times it can seem like it doesn't account for the heroic element of it. But no, it's there. It's there even in the smallest of ways, which, you know what? Maybe that's sufficient. Maybe we're thinking too grandiose about saving the world and being the chosen one. Maybe the most heroic thing is just being good in the world that we exist in, the tiny little world we live in, and being good in our relationships and in our practices, and you know what I mean? That would be heroic enough almost. And you do see that from these characters. You know, you do see that from the girl Sasha saved. So it's there. The only thing I'm left to think about is like this descent into cruelty is just something that is easy to come to, because to take responsibility for doing things that you feel are right is very difficult and forces one to change one's behavior to be consistent. But anyway, I digress. I'm loving this season so far, honestly. Like, it's such a blast. I think in terms of just the story and characters, season 3 has some of my favorite moments still, but season 4 is so amazingly provocative. The perspective switch is so great. I'm really enjoying this. So yeah, looking forward to seeing where it goes. I'll see you next time for what is quickly approaching the end of the season, this first half season, sadly.